This is Kite Cutter TV with another presentation. We gotta talk about this. Okay guys, just to start off, I'm a black African American and I admit obviously that racism exists and I have definitely experienced it many times in my life. However, this isn't the main problem that our society is dealing with. But if you listen to the media, they would have you believe racism is more of an important topic compared to even unemployment, especially in poverty-stricken areas. And even when you go check out the black on black crime that's happening in Chicago, I won't even get into that because it's just unbelievable. But just to be clear, it's not only blacks that can receive racism, it's all the races on the planet, which is obviously too many to name, but the media will primarily focus on black people with a dash of Latino, and now that the coronavirus is out there, Asians also, but no other races, according to the media, can be affected with this overstated problem. Bottom line is primarily the people on the left want to divide and conquer both sides of the aisle, and if you are white, they want you to feel white guilt. This is a topic I've tried to avoid, but now since this is in the media every day, it's something I must address. The left will even attack innocent people that did nothing and they weren't even there. Hard to believe? Check this out.
I wasn't even there.
In fact, Steve Green of Miami Beach was on a plane Thursday night when this was happening at Ramen Lab Eatery in Delray Beach.
I asked you a nice way to leave. China food shoved up your.
The restaurant owner, Louis Grayson, asked 3 men to leave after they sat down outside right before closing. That's when the men hurled racial slurs at Grayson and told him they hoped he would die of coronavirus. Sunday morning, Green woke up to find more than a dozen hate messages had been sent to his email and social media accounts, stating he was one of the men in the video.
We don't look like the same person, but we have a similar frame.
WPBF 25 is not identifying the men in the video since they were not arrested and will not be charged. Green found a blog post accusing him of being involved in the racial tirade.
At first, I was just completely shocked. I knew time was of essence to get on top of it fast.
Green contacted the restaurant owner.
And the owner, Louis, from the Ramen Lab, he really helped out.
Grayson then posted this on the restaurant's Facebook page, quote, "We have found the person. It is not Steve Green, so please do not post anything about Steve Green." Green circled back with the blogger, the people who emailed him, and the people who tweeted about him. He says his name has been mostly cleared online, but there are still a few tweets out there spreading false information about him.
I would never do that egregious act that these men did, and also I wasn't in Delray.
Green says the worst of this seems to be over, but he's left wondering how this happened in the first place and who spread this around originally.
How did this person falsely accuse me without doing any research? I hope this doesn't happen to other people, because maybe some people would have ignored it. That could have really cost somebody. So you definitely want to fight to protect your name online.
Steve King, WPBF 25 News.
Well, tonight, Mayor Aaron Mendenhall and the Salt Lake City Council declaring racism a public health crisis.
The mayor's office saying at the height of the pandemic, those in Glendale were 3 times more likely to be infected and 2 times more likely in Rose Park, where there are high percentages of Latino and non-white residents. Latino communities account for 14.2% of Utah's population, but 40% of the state's COVID-19 cases. Mayor Mendenhall saying, in part, not only are we publicly acknowledging the existence of a grave inequity that many in our community have known and experienced for so long, we are also committing ourselves to the creation of policies and ordinance that are anti-racist. Included in the resolution is the pledge to be critical about the policies created to ensure they do not add to the compounding of inequities and that they work to undo damage done over many years.
In just 1 year, you've probably heard these 3 words more than you can count.
Critical race theory.
Twisted critical race theory into classrooms.
We must eliminate critical race theory at every level.
It is repulsive, it is anti-American, and it is as racist as it gets.
But what exactly is critical race theory?
How would you define critical race theory?
Indoctrinating.
What is the definition of critical race theory?
I don't think that I can define it, but I think it's allowing the truth out about how we've treated people.
Be it bad, good, whatever, it is our history.
Do you have any thoughts on it?
I don't even know what that is.
Critical race theory, the latest buzzwords. But what's the noise all about?
In the most basic terms, simply put, what is critical race theory?
So the easiest way to understand it is that it teaches you to understand your state institutions, the Department of Education, the Department of Corrections, from the perspective of race. The best analogy is to think about it in terms of gender studies.
Dr. Eric Small has been a philosophy professor at Rollins College for 15 years. This will be the first year he teaches a critical race theory class. He says universities first started formally teaching CRT in the 1970s. Fast forward to today, Florida's governor doesn't want to hear about it in public schools at all.
We have this ban now at Florida public schools that they can't teach it. But were they teaching it to begin with?
This is a great question. So I sometimes think of this conversation as a solution in search of a problem. No schools, certainly not high schools in the state of Florida or anywhere else, would have been teaching critical race theory because it's scholarly work. You'll see it in graduate schools, in law schools, and PhD programs, but you certainly wouldn't see it in grade schools.
So if Florida public schools aren't even teaching CRT, then why all the controversy now?
Critical race theory has pervaded every institution in the federal government.
This is why. Conservative activist Christopher Rufo spoke out against CRT on Fox News last summer.
And is now being weaponized against the American people.
Grabbing the attention of then-President Donald Trump, who quickly issued an executive order banning critical race theory just weeks later. Since then, President Joe Biden reversed Trump's ban. But other Republican leaders are now blocking CRT in their own states, including Governor Ron DeSantis.
Teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer money.
In early June, the State Board of Education approved the ban.
Opposed, say aye. Aye.
But that unanimous vote
allow teachers
Could somebody
to teach the truth.
outraged others. Ben Frazier sounded off and led protesters before being escorted out.
It's an effort to whitewash, cover up, and candy coat history.
So what exactly does Florida's new rule ban? Well, it bans teaching that racism is embedded in American society and its legal systems in order to uphold the supremacy of white persons.
While Florida leaders try to silence CRT lessons, Professor Small says now the conversation is already underway.
Students are interested. They want to know, what is critical race theory and what should I think about it?
A flashpoint in Florida schools, sparking both educational and now political debates. In Orlando, Marley Martinez, WESH 2 News.
And coming up at 6, we continue diving into the debate over critical race theory. We speak to students, parents, and teachers about why the controversial topic is now causing them to draw new battle lines inside the classroom.
At 6, Maryland civil rights leaders traveled all across the Eastern Shore today on a bus tour to remind Marylanders of the need to eliminate systemic racism and police misconduct. Stetson Miller tells us more about what kind of changes they want to see addressed about these inequalities in our state.
This is a bus tour on a mission, traveling over 100 miles across Maryland's Eastern Shore on Monday to send the message that change needs to happen now to address systematic racism and express concerns about the recent violent teen arrests on the boardwalk in Ocean City.
We are mobilizing, organizing, energizing the community to make it crystal clear what happened in Ocean City, Maryland, is unacceptable.
A group of black teens were arrested in June for vaping, including one who was repeatedly kneed by Ocean City police. Tour organizers say the incident is just one example of racial injustice and police misconduct that's happened here. They want people to know they won't stand for it.
We're going from one city along Maryland's Eastern Shore, stopping and reminding people that in Ocean City, Maryland, that what occurred there was not an aberration.
The tour is similar to the freedom rides of the 1960s, which were designed to highlight racial inequities in the South. This group has the same goal. They made stops in towns from Annapolis to Ocean City so they can voice their concerns about the way the teens on the boardwalk and other African Americans have been treated.
We have to stand up for what is wrong, regardless of who does it. So that's why it was important.
And civil rights leaders are meeting with Ocean City Mayor Rick Meehan this evening and are hoping that this tour will start to change some of the policies that they say are causing systematic racism. In Cambridge, Stetson Miller for WJZ.
never know what you're going to see or read on any given day. Tonight, a shocking email message is under investigation after being sent out from a student account to some in the Bay District school system. As News 13's Thomas Schultz tells us, the message contained racist and discriminatory language.
The Bay District school system is currently investigating a rogue email that was sent from one student's account at 5:30 Tuesday morning to students and teachers within the Bay District school system. However, officials believe someone else accessed the student's account and sent out the hate message.
We're investigating it. I believe it's a felony, what was done. We'll continue to investigate it. We're going to offer a $500 reward that leads to the arrest and conviction of the person that did this.
While we can't show you the email in question, Husfeld says more than 100 people saw it before it was deleted.
This was definitely hate beyond anything that any of us can even imagine. It was something you don't want to wake up in the morning and start checking your email and see that.
While BDS isn't yet sure who sent the email, they are sure it was not through a hack in their software.
None of our systems were compromised by it. Again, I'm not an expert, but we're pretty sure whoever had it figured out somebody's password or something. It was that kind of thing.
But these kind of attacks are becoming more common.
It's a constant thing. The bad actors and the people that want to do this are constant. And what we do every day is try to come in and make sure we're as safe as we can be.
To prevent attacks like this one, the school district plans to work with law enforcement to find the person who sent the email.
We are going to cooperate with any officials that have to do any investigation or looking into this, and we're going to do whatever we can to find out who did this.
BDS hopes to remind students and teachers to consistently change their email passwords and make them longer so that they are more difficult to break into. In Panama City, Thomas Schultz, News 13 Panhandle Strong.
Now, Ben & Jerry's, the painfully woke ice cream brand, regularly virtue signal about every societal issue under the sun. And they've been at it again. This time, they've decided to take a stand against the only Jewish state and released a statement declaring that we believe it is inconsistent with our values for Ben & Jerry's ice cream to be sold in the occupied Palestinian territory. The move was condemned by the Israeli Prime Minister and many others who pointed out the hypocrisy of the company and its many double standards. Let's not forget that Ben & Jerry's parent company is more than happy to sell ice cream in China, which is currently committing ethnic genocide against the Uyghurs. Ben & Jerry's is happy to sell its overpriced ice cream in the Palestinian territories where members of the LGBT community face horrendous abuse from Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. I could be here all night listing the many double standards, but one man didn't just speak out, he acted. He responded to Ben & Jerry's grandstanding with this response. A.V. Kainer tweeted, "We are having a board meeting this afternoon to discuss ending sales of your ice cream in our supermarket chain. The supermarket chain is Wharton Williams, and I was joined earlier from New York by the owner, A.V. Kainer, and I asked him what action his supermarkets were taking against Ben & Jerry's and why."
So Ben & Jerry's came out with their new policy to boycott what they call occupied Palestinian territories. But what that actually was a dog whistle. It was a dog whistle to boycott Jewish communities in disputed areas in Israel, including, for example, the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem. Think about it this way. In 1949, after living there for 3,000 years, the Jewish population in Jerusalem, in the Jewish quarter, was ethnically cleansed and dozens of synagogues were destroyed. In 1967, after the Six-Day War, Jews were able to go back and move into the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem. So who is Ben & Jerry's to come in now and say that little girls in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem cannot have ice cream? How ridiculous is that? And there are two other ways you could see this as a dog whistle. The second way is they've also announced the decision to shutter the factory, the Ben & Jerry's factory that's in southern Israel, which is not even in disputed territory. So this has nothing to do with disputed territory. This is a vendetta, a social warrior, just a crazed decision that makes no sense. The third example is Israel is literally the only Jewish nation in the world, and Ben & Jerry's has decided to target the only Jewish nation in the world. Ben & Jerry's sells ice cream in many, many places, including, for example, Malaysia. Malaysia has a population of 31 million people. It has no freedom of religion, no freedom of press. If they discover that someone's gay, they throw him or her in jail for 20 years, if not worse. But it's okay to sell ice cream over there. So as you can see, this was a targeted attack against the Jewish communities that happen to live in disputed areas of Israel, and I'd say all of Israel.